Hey everyone! If you've ever had to manage several Gmail accounts for work, clients, marketing, or freelance projects, you know how quickly it can turn into chaos. You're constantly switching between inboxes, double-checking which account you're logged into, trying not to reply from the wrong email, and hoping you don't miss something important along the way. In this video, we'll talk about how to manage multiple Gmail accounts properly. We'll start with the most basic options Gmail offers, then look at what happens when you try to scale this setup, what risks appear, and finally how tools like Gologin can help organize everything in a much cleaner and more controlled way. At first, having more than one Gmail account doesn't feel like a problem at all. You log in, switch accounts when needed, maybe add a few labels or filters, and everything seems manageable. But once the number of accounts grows, the workflow starts to break down. You begin spending more time just figuring out which inbox you're in. You hesitate before replying, double-check sender addresses, and sometimes still make mistakes. Conversations get scattered, context is lost, and simple actions start taking more mental effort than they should. And the biggest issue here isn't even convenience. It's what's happening in the background. From Google's point of view, many of these accounts often look almost identical. They're accessed from the same device, the same browser, and very often the same internet connection. Even if you're using these accounts for legitimate work, this kind of setup makes them technically connected. When you're managing one or two accounts, this usually isn't a big deal. Gmail's built-in tools are perfectly fine at that scale. But when you start working with many accounts, 5, 10, or more, the situation changes. Now it's not just inconvenient. It becomes risky. Accounts that are constantly accessed from the same computer and the same internet connection can be linked together. Over time, Google can clearly see that these accounts are being used from one device. And if something goes wrong, a security check, a restriction, or a suspension, it may not stay isolated to just one account. That's why the real challenge of multi-accounting isn't simply logging into many Gmail accounts. The real challenge is keeping those accounts separated, stable, and consistent over time. Gmail does provide some built-in tools to help with organization. You can add multiple accounts and switch between them. You can link inboxes, set up filters and labels, or delegate access to other people without sharing passwords. For a small setup, this works well enough. But technically, nothing is really isolated. All accounts still live inside the same browser on the same device, and usually use the same internet connection. As the number of accounts grows, this setup becomes harder to control and easier to break. A common workaround is using separate Chrome profiles. Each profile keeps its own cookies and login sessions, which already makes things a bit cleaner and reduces confusion. For a few accounts, this can be an acceptable solution, but Chrome profiles also have clear limitations. Even though accounts are separated visually, they are still used on the same computer and, in most cases, through the same IP address. From Google's perspective, this still looks like multiple accounts being accessed from one device. If you want to fully separate accounts at this level, you need each of them to look like they're coming from a different environment. This is usually the point where people realize that the problem isn't email management anymore. It's environment management. And this is exactly where Antidetect browsers come into play. Antidetect browsers are designed to create separate, isolated browser environments that look like independent users to websites. Instead of running all accounts inside one technical setup, each account gets its own environment with its own digital identity. One of the tools built specifically for this kind of workflow is Gologin. At first glance, Gologin looks and feels like a regular browser. You can open tabs, install extensions, log into websites, and work exactly the same way you would in Chrome or Firefox. There's no steep learning curve, and nothing feels unfamiliar. But behind this familiar interface, Gologin automatically manages dozens of technical parameters that define how a browser looks to websites. Things like browser version, operating system, time zone, language, screen resolution, fonts, WebRTC settings, and many other fingerprint elements are configured individually for each profile. This means that each profile doesn't just remember where you're logged in. It behaves like a separate, real user, with its own consistent digital identity. From a platform's perspective, these profiles don't look like copies. They look like different people using different computers. Inside Gologin, everything is built around browser profiles. Each profile is a fully isolated environment with its own saved sessions. browser settings, and network configuration. Instead of constantly switching accounts in a single browser, you work with separate profiles, one profile per Gmail account. In addition to browser identity, there's another important part of proper account separation: the internet connection itself. Even if each profile looks like a different device, if all of them are using the same internet connection, they will still share the same IP address. For platforms like Google, this is a strong signal that all accounts are being used from one location. This is where proxies come in. Proxies allow each profile to use a different IP address. In simple terms, they make it look like each account is accessing Gmail from a different place. Combined with isolated browser profiles, this creates a much cleaner and more realistic separation between accounts. Inside the Gologin app, you can add reliable proxies directly to your profiles. You don't need external tools or complicated configurations. Everything is managed in one place, which makes the setup much easier to control and maintain. Gologin supports 3 main proxy types. Residential proxies use real household IP addresses and are generally considered the safest option for most tasks. Mobile proxies work through mobile networks and tend to look very natural from the platform's perspective, especially when behavior changes slightly over time. Data center proxies are faster and more affordable, but they're usually better suited for accounts that are already established. You can buy proxies one by one directly inside the Gologin interface, or import your own proxies if you already work with a specific provider. In both cases, the key rule remains the same. One profile uses one proxy. This simple principle plays a major role in keeping accounts separated and stable. Creating a new profile in Gologin is straightforward. You click Create Profile, give it a clear name, usually based on the purpose of the Gmail account or the client it belongs to, and add tags or notes if needed. These details become extremely helpful once you're managing more than just a handful of profiles. After that, you assign a proxy to the profile and save it. When you launch the profile, a new browser window opens. From this point on, this environment is completely isolated from everything else. Inside that window, you log into Gmail or create a new Gmail account. All session data is saved automatically inside this profile, so the next time you open it, you return to the same account without mixing sessions or environments. For optimal Gmail farming, stick to residential proxies from Tier 1 countries like the USA, UK, Canada, Germany, and similar. They raise fewer suspicions from Google, mimic real user behavior better, and reduce the chances of triggering phone verification hurdles during account creation. Residential proxies help maintain a low detection profile, ensuring higher success in managing multiple Gmail accounts without bans. If you notice immediate prompts for phone verification or CAPTCHAs popping up right away, just switch your proxy. 99% of the time, the issue stems from a flagged IPs or low-quality connection. Testing proxies beforehand with tools in Gologin can save you headaches and keep your workflow smooth. If you're still facing low success rates, failed registrations, persistent CAPTCHAs, or other glitches despite tweaks, try to switch to mobile proxies. They provide dynamic IPs that simulate mobile device usage, which Google views as more natural, especially for bulk operations. This can significantly improve your hit rate when creating unlimited Gmail accounts securely. These expert tips on proxies for Gmail security will help you fine-tune your setup for maximum efficiency and minimal risks. It's important to understand that no tool can guarantee 0 issues or 0 checks. But what Gologin does is significantly reduce the number of risky situations by keeping each account in its own clean, consistent environment. Good habits still matter. Avoid creating many Gmail accounts in a short period of time. Use unique recovery emails and phone numbers. Keep behavior consistent within each profile, and never mix profiles or reuse environments. Although this video focuses on Gmail, the same approach applies to many other platforms. Gologin is commonly used to manage social media accounts, advertising platforms, marketplaces, and other services where account separation and stability are critical. So if you're managing just 1 or 2 Gmail accounts, Gmail's built-in tools are usually enough. If you need a bit more structure, Chrome profiles can work for a while. But if you're working with multiple accounts on a regular basis and want a cleaner, more scalable system, Using an anti-detect browser like Gologin gives you more control, better organization, and a much lower level of friction in your daily workflow. As the number of profiles grows, organization becomes critical. Gologin allows you to group profiles into folders, filter them by tags, sort them by status, and quickly find exactly the account you need. You can also perform actions on multiple profiles at once, which saves a lot of time when working at scale. Another important part of larger setups is team access. Gologin lets you share profiles with teammates without exposing login credentials. You can control who can open a profile, who can edit it, and who has limited access. This makes collaboration much safer and more structured, especially when working with client accounts. That's it for this guide. Thanks for watching, and feel free to leave your questions in the comments.